Well, I'm pleased to say it's time to introduce today's political panel now, and joining us right here in the studio in a non-sitting week, Labor MP for Newcastle, Sharon Claydon's back. Welcome and good to see you again, Sharon. And from Sydney, Liberal MP for Hughes, Jenny Ware is with us too. Welcome.
Hello, Greg.
To you too, Jenny. Look, this is a slightly redundant question now because of developments in your home state around the Supreme Court, but let's just get a quick response to that. Sharon, I'll go to you first of all. Regarding protests that had been planned specifically for Monday, these are now not going to happen due to agreements struck around the Supreme Court. There will be altered plans for Sunday, but is that a sensible outcome in your view?
That's a very welcome outcome, and I'm sure Australians everywhere will welcome the news.
Yeah. Jenny, a quick observation from you. I imagine I picked up from most MPs, regardless of stripe, Labor or Coalition, that they were highly sensitive to events being held on the Monday that weren't respectful of Israeli victims. Your response?
Oh, I agree. I think it's a sensible approach. It's a day when we need to stand with our Jewish community and with our friends in Israel and commemorate and remember what was a truly dreadful massacre 12 months ago.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, it is redundant, but I thank you for those observations. Let's push on and see what we can get through today. So, Sharon, just to elaborate on the introduction, the reason that you're here is you and other members of the Select Committee looking at social media have had a significant number of hearings here in recent days. Is it any clearer to you, after listening to all of the evidence, how an age-based ban on social media is going to work in this country?
Yeah, I've just come off the back of 3 days of solid public hearings. We've been working on this inquiry for some time. The first part of the inquiry was really focused around the News Media Bargaining Code and the evidence there. But you're right, Greg, the back half of the inquiry is around impacts of social media on Australian society. And, we hear from people who have enjoyed lots of benefits from social media, and there are lots of young people and neurodivergent people, people who might feel otherwise isolated, talking to us about that. But, it is fair to say we've heard some really harrowing evidence as well from especially parents whose children have borne the full brunt of bullying, blackmailing, just unfathomable intimidation and pain, leading to, in some cases, the death of young Australians. And so age verification is one tool in the kit bag. I don't think anyone should pretend it is in and of itself the sole answer here.
Right.
But we're very close to starting the trial, of course, which will be the government has finished the tender process. That should start any day now.
All right. And Jenny, I know we've spoken about this before on the program with you. You probably weren't privy to the evidence that Sharon and the committee members were, but do you see a coming together as likely here between Coalition and government when we get to that age-based ban element, which has been, effectively promised by the Albanese government?
Well, definitely it will be. We definitely support an age-based ban, Greg. We have heard, and in our own home city recently, poor little Charlotte, who took her own life at the age of only 12. We've heard about the terrible impact that a lot of social media has had on our teenagers, and we need to then provide an appropriate age in which we say, well, yes, and as parents as well, we need to give parents the tools to be able to say you can't be on this platform at this age. And I think that the appropriate age, as we've said in the Coalition for a long time, is 16. We provide other laws to protect teenagers from themselves. There are laws around the age at which they can drive. There are laws around the age at which they can legally drink alcohol, for example. And I think when we have seen the scourge and the terrible social impacts that social media can have on many of our younger Australians, we do have to bring in age verification, and we need to do all that we can to ensure that our young people are safe online, or as safe as they can be. And the federal parliament has legislative power at its disposal. So we have said in the coalition for a long time the appropriate age is 16. We don't agree with the flip-flopping approach that we've seen from the Prime Minister, for example. We say it's 16, and we've been saying that for a long time, Greg.
Okay, so that is a consistent position. As you've heard the evidence, Sharon, how does 16 look to you right now?
Well, I've got to be honest, there are a range of ages being put to the committee, and that is one of the challenges, is arriving at the right age, and I believe that needs an evidence-based approach to it.
Are you satisfied on what you heard this week, that the technology is reliable? And I know there are an abundance of products that claim to be able to do this effectively. Are you convinced by that?
Look, there are some sophisticated technologies around, but I have to stress again, do not think this is a one, horse show. This is one tool in the kit bag. Even parents who've, experienced that unfathomable pain of losing a child, where they believe and put a strong case that social media was part of that, they know full well that there are actually, it has to be a multi-pronged approach here. Where is the accountability on the big tech companies? People want transparency and accountability in order to, for social media to gain a social licence, they need to be socially responsible and operate according to Australian laws. And we are really struggling. This is a global problem.
Sure.
Governments across the world are tackling this, and Australia's going to play a very lead role in doing that.
All right, we'll look forward to further reporting by your committee. Jenny, we might take up the next topic, firstly with you, shrinkflation. I think some of us might have experienced that when shopping, but the government is promising to take a harder line here and improve what they call unit pricing, so price per weight or price per quantity. Do you reckon that guarantees or better guarantees value at the supermarket?
I think we have all been the victim of this, Greg, and shrinkflation is when the quantity or the volume of a product decreases but the price remains the same, or in fact increases. We need to make it far easier for consumers, for people doing their weekly shop, for Australians already under significant cost of living pressures, to be able to make a clear choice when they go into the supermarket, to understand absolutely how an item is being priced, and to therefore be able to make the right choices for their individual budgets and their household budgets and for their families. So I do think that this is long overdue, and I do support the unit pricing code and moves towards that.
Yeah, so the power of that, Jenny, is really with the consumer voting to go elsewhere, right? Or do you think that the big supermarket chains will, off their own bat, respond to it by more fairly pricing their goods?
Well, it's hoped that they will respond by more fairly pricing their goods, but at the end of the day, this is about ensuring that consumers can properly make a decision as to when they go into a retailer or a supermarket, to say very quickly, yes, I'm going to buy product A from this supermarket, or I'm not, because I've seen product A somewhere else, and they need to be able to do it in such a way that they are able to compare apples with apples, for example.
Yeah. Do you see this, Sharon Clayton, as shifting the dial substantially? I mean, people are feeling like they're $2 and $3 per item on some lines behind with excessive pricing. Is this at the margins, or does it make a big difference?
Well, Australians should have every confidence when they go to do their weekly shop that they're not being ripped off, that there's a fair deal at the supermarket. And I think the ACCC, the work of choice, has really exposed some really unconscionable practices. This week we've already cracked down on the the practice of this, artificially inflating the price of something in order to pretend you're giving it as a sale, when in fact people are still paying more for the same product. Now, the focus around this practice, the need that we don't want people having to go to the checkout and end up paying the same for less product. And that's really where we're at. So there's a lot of improvement to be made around this unit pricing, so that when you rock up to the shopping aisle, you can see clearly what 100 grams is costing you.
Yeah.
And it's not just one answer, Greg. You've got to tackle this from multiple approaches, and that's what the government's doing.
It's already there in theory. It's just a matter of whether it can be sharpened up and conformed to a little better than it was. Sharon, why don't we go to hydrogen now? And this hits home for you because there's been an announcement today by Origin Energy that it will not be making a final investment decision into the Hunter Valley Hydrogen Hub, which was to be based around Kooragang Island in Newcastle. What's the impact of this withdrawal going to be on that project or on hydrogen in general in this country?
Yeah, it is really disappointing news. This was a big project earmarked for my community of Newcastle. It was a partnership with Orica, one of the biggest emitters in my electorate. It is one of two projects that we currently have before the Hydrogen Head Start program, so the $2 billion that the government's got on the table to try and kickstart some of these early investments into green hydrogen. So we've still got one project in that short list, so I remain very hopeful that there might still be a green hydrogen project in Newcastle.
But with other players, right?
Other players.
It's not going to be Origin.
It will not be Origin. No. Origin has made a commercial decision and they're just saying that they don't believe that they can make it stack up for them. So, and this is the real challenge with brand new industries.
Sure.
That's why the Hydrogen Head Start program is in place. There are more than there are about another 25 projects under construction nationally at the moment, but I'm very hopeful that there'll be another one for Newcastle and the Hunter.
All right. Sharon reckons something could rise out of this. What do you think, Jenny? What's the market saying here, or Origin specifically saying here about hydrogen?
Well, I think Origin is saying exactly the same thing that Fortescue said back in July, that is that there is not the investor confidence in the government's climate policy and in the government's renewable energies policy. If they did have that confidence, they would be using the opportunity to invest, and we've had now two significant companies pull out, and it's showing overall that there is not the confidence from business that the government is heading in the right direction with its energy policy. It must do what we have been saying for a long time, which is that we need to embrace a whole hybrid approach towards energy, towards us getting to our target of net zero by 2050, and the walk back from hydrogen by two significant companies simply shows that the government has got it wrong overall on its energy. It is unlikely to reach its 2030 targets, and AEMO is even saying that. So this is, I think, a major blow to the government's energy policy, a major blow to Minister Bowen, and the government does really need to revisit its renewables-only zealotry approach to energy pricing and policy.
Quick final word, Sharon.
That is like just such the greatest threat to an energy policy in this country is a coalition's continuous undermining of renewable energies and flirting with an idea, a fanciful idea of nuclear sometime down the never, not knowing when, where, how much it's costing. Australia doesn't have time for that. I'm in a region that's got a carbon-intensive economy. We are fully aware of the need to do a transition. We'll lead the nation in doing that transition. 60, new renewable projects in the pipeline, You know, it's such a shame that a opposition that couldn't land a single energy policy in its 10 years now wants to undermine Australia's energy policy.
All right. Well, this is a debate.
Greg, if I can just respond to that very quickly.
Okay.
In terms of the nuclear policy, and that the nuclear forms one part of our approach towards decarbonisation. And when Sharon says we haven't released details about the Ware, we have released details about the Ware. We are releasing costing details, and I must say that Minister Bowen has. Let me finish, Sharon. You got an opportunity to finish.
Sure, go ahead.
That we are proposing nuclear that is tried and tested. It's been tried and tested throughout Europe and throughout the United States and throughout the United Kingdom. Yeah. So we will be using, we are using this as an approach of what other countries have done around the world and countries that are on track to reach their targets without simply relying on renewables only. We are saying there must be a hybrid mix.
Just don't have 20 years to wait.
You know, we await eagerly those further details. I know they'll come eventually. I hope they do. We will wrap it up there, though. Time's going to beat us today. Sharon Clayton, Jenny Ware, always good to have you both with us. Thanks again.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks.